In the next 5 minutes, I'm gonna ruin your day, maybe your life, because you have no idea what reality is. You know, you're just scrolling through your phone looking for cats or tits or cat tits, like the mindless cretin you are, but you're about to hear some hard truths. So, you know, by all means, you should ignore me. Watch some cats. Do not listen to what I'm about to say. So it all started 2 days ago. It was around 6 p.m, but I was already pretty melted. Jambo was next to me giving me some tax advice I could barely understand until I made out the words, "we're in a simulation." And I said, "Don't be ridiculous," but it sounded more like, "don't." And then he tells me it's simple mathematics. Technology is moving so fast that soon we'll be able to make simulations that are indistinguishable from reality. And then we can program little people to populate them. We'll create artificial intelligence inside these mental little worlds. So now imagine all the possible simulations we'll make in the future, and all of the simulations within those simulations. We're talking billions of simulations, with the little people inside of them totally unaware that their world is programmed. So you have to ask yourself, what's more likely? That we're in one of these billions of simulations, or the single base reality that would create the first simulation? So by this point I'm fully crying, and I start to think, why does no one talk about this? All these people wandering around laminating stuff, totally unaware that their entire world is a simulation. And yeah, I mean, I started feeling a bit glum. You know, I'm a 23-year-old man that makes internet videos for a living inside a simulation. But my God, the simulation thing was nothing. Are you listening? The simulation thing was nothing compared to what I found out the next day.
Love and darkness.
I was seeing my ex, which was already incredibly awkward on account of the STD thing, but she's berating me less than usual, and actually says she forgives me for my deep, irredeemable flaws and lack of basic human decency, and for turning up to see her rough as arse like I always do, because no one has free will anyway. And I'm trying not to vomit, but I ask, what do you mean? And she says that if people don't have souls, they're just a product of their genetics and environment, which are out of our control. And if every decision we make is a result of this, then we're never really making any decision of our own volition. Free will is just an illusion. And I don't believe either of the two of her I'm seeing, but she tells me about this experiment in the 80s. This guy called Libet strapped people up to brain scanners and asked them to occasionally move their hands whilst watching this weird clock. And the idea was that when they made a conscious decision to move their hand, they noted down the time on the clock. But here's where it gets scary. There was brain activity related to the hand movements hundreds of milliseconds before they made a conscious decision. So a part of their brain they weren't aware of knew what they were going to do before they realized it themselves. Their decisions were made prior to the illusion of their making them. So I'm trying not to cry or vomit again, and she says that you have to take this to its logical conclusion. If she was born in the environmental and genetic conditions of Hitler or me, she'd do the same horrible things because she would simply be me or Hitler. So she forgives me.
Push me out to sea, baby. It's the best thing for us both. I'll be happy out there, baby. Fish below and stars above. And you'll be happier without me.
And now not only are you in a simulation, you also don't have free will. You're just an amalgamation of programmed neurons and hormones misfiring through a robot hellscape. And I'm hyperventilating my way back home looking for a bin to puke in, and it brings back this other memory of the night before, on account of I was also trying to puke in a bin then. Jambo had stuck on this old TV show about quantum mechanics to calm me down, but oh boy did it not calm me down. Because you see, there was this other experiment, the double slit experiment. Scientists started shooting atoms towards a surface through 2 slits, but the atoms were acting all weird. You'd expect particles fired through 2 slits to end up in 2 strips, right? I mean, they should be solid. But they weren't, they were spreading out into this interference pattern like waves would. So the scientists were all like, why are these atoms acting like waves? That's odd. And they start using a detective device, sort of like a camera, to watch the atoms go through the slits and see what's going on. But when they do, the atoms act like particles again. 2 strips. Take the device away and stop spying on the atoms, and they act like waves again. Their behaviour changed when they were being observed, and did the scientists know why? Did they And don't get me wrong, the show was pretty boring, but it was also sort of mental breakdown inducing in the sense that it was giving me a mental breakdown.
Okay, Peter, the keys are in.
Right, keys in. Can you check this oil level, please, Harry?
They called what was going on the observer effect. and it means that the simple act of observation can change the results of an experiment. And that's what got me even more spooked. You can break reality down to try to understand it, go smaller and smaller until you're working with these cheeky atoms, and then you suddenly realize that you can't even measure or interact with these things. They just elude proper human understanding. 1 minute they're particles, the next they're waves, and somehow they're both at the same time. Oh, and apparently humans can act like waves too, which is like a whole Pandora's box of worms. And that's when I started thinking it's not just unanswered questions like, are we in a simulation or do we have free will? It's unanswerable questions, these mysteries of the universe that we'll never properly understand. And I mean, how do you cope with that? Like, are you just meant to float through life, never questioning anything like a Coldplay fan? Just distract yourself with sex and Kinder eggs like everybody else and try not to think about how you don't know a thing about anything, like an ant, like a dumb ant that was raised on a farm. And I mean, and then what? You grow up and you have a kid so it can fail to answer the same fundamental questions until you die, and it also dies. And no one is an inch closer to having the slightest clue what's going on or what it all means, or whether human life is actually defined by just a total lack of awareness and understanding about everything